Can we start, please, with Grenfell Tower? This week we have finally started to see the covers going up around the building. Can you just update us as to the process of rehoming the 203 households left homeless?
Yes, of course, Neil. So we've had so far 111 households who have accepted to move into either temporary or permanent accommodation, and of those, 54 have already moved in. And as you say, there are 203 households in total. We're working very hard to make sure, the council is working very hard to make sure that they are rehoused. But of course, we want to make sure that we move at a pace that makes sense for individual households. And that is why we're working very closely with them. Myself, the Home Office Minister Nick Hurd, we hold regular surgeries on an individual basis with households to see how we can help and assist. And the council is obviously committed quite a lot of money to making sure that new permanent homes are brought online. They already have secured around 200 with the aim of 300 by Christmas.
And do you think that's sufficient, do you? Almost half of the 203 households left homeless by the fire as yet have no offer of other accommodation other than a hotel room.
Well, they have had offers of accommodation, but obviously what we've been very keen we have been very keen to do is to work with them to find a home that makes sense for them. And, you know, we have to do this in a really sensitive way. And so where people have said that they want to have further choices, we have given those. And we will continue to work with households until they're in a home that makes sense for them.
2 days after the fire, your boss, Sajid Javid, said that the government would do whatever it takes to improve safety in tower blocks. What are you doing?
Well, in terms of testing of other safety blocks around the country, we've, of course, now had the testing of all tower blocks over 18 metres within the social housing sector. And, of course, work is continuing within the private sector. We have set up an expert panel which has been providing advice. And, of course, there is also now an independent review of building regulations that's taking place under Dame Judith Hackett. And what we want to make sure as a result of this process is people feel safe in their homes. Ultimately, it is a legal requirement for landlords to make sure that their tenants feel safe, and we certainly want to make sure that happens.
But the improvements to safety, as identified in the aftermath of Grenfell, the bill for that falls on local authorities, doesn't it?
Well, what we've said to local authorities is that we will work with them in terms of the financial issues. The starting point, of course, is for them to identify, together with their local fire service, what is essential work to make sure that people are kept safe. We've had 31 local authorities that have approached us. We have asked them to provide further information. And yes, of course, so in terms of how they can fund this, they can look at surpluses within their housing revenue account. We can look to see whether it may be possible to move monies from their general reserves. But at the end of the day, Neil, what we want to make sure that people feel safe, and we are committed to working with local authorities to make sure that happens.
Yeah, I mean, buried in the middle of that answer, Mr Sharma, was yes. I mean, essentially, it is local authorities that are going to have to pay for this. I mean, what the government has done in terms of doing whatever it takes to improve safety in tower blocks is allow local authorities to move numbers around in a spreadsheet.
Well, local authorities, of course, have a legal duty to keep their tenants safe, but we've been very clear, and as I said, we've got a conversation ongoing with 31 local authorities, and yes, of course, we would look to see what they could do with the resources that are available to them, but if that was not possible, we would look to see what more we could do.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't strike me that doing whatever it takes is, you know, putting the onus on the local authority, who already has a pretty stretched budget. I mean, the money's going to have to come from somewhere. Something is going to suffer as a result.
Well, I think it's really important that we do this in a collaborative way, and the local authorities that have approached us are talking to a team we've set up within the Department for Local Government to have these very detailed discussions, and I'm confident that at the end of this process we will end up with a position where local authorities are able to fund the essential works that are necessary to keep people safe.
Since I started doing this show, we've decided to try and have a real focus on the record of whoever is in government. You know, politicians should be judged on the record, I'm sure you'll agree. So, in your mind, since 2010, I mean, what is this government's single greatest achievement when it comes to the problems in housing?
So, since 2010, we have, through the Affordable Homes Programme, delivered 333,000 affordable homes, 240,000 of which are for rent. You've also had a big focus on Help to Buy, and as you will have seen the announcements at the party conference, another £10 billion for Help to Buy, helping another 135,000 people gain a foothold and own their own home, which I think is a really good thing. Another £2 billion on top of the £7 billion for affordable homes. And I think also very importantly, Neil, this is not being covered.
Mr. Sharma, the question was, what is your greatest achievement since 2010? And you're talking about something that you announced the other week. I mean, do you actually understand just how far removed the idea of home ownership is from most people? You know, it takes 19 years currently for the average family to raise the deposit for a home. The number of people forced to rent has soared by 1 million. I mean, the problems in the housing market have gotten worse since you got into government, not better.
The issues in the housing market is just the fact that over many decades, under successive governments, we have not built enough homes. And we put out our housing white paper in February, which was titled "Fixing the Broken Housing Market," and that's precisely what we're doing. You're asking me what we've done since 2010. We have, with developers and the social sector, made sure that a lot more houses are built. But I absolutely agree with you. We need to be doing even more on this. And as I was saying to you, at the conference, we announced another £10 billion for Help to Buy, which will help 135,000 homes, households.
Let's focus on Help to Buy for a second, Mr. Sharma. I mean, I think we've got a point there. But let's focus on Help to Buy. I mean, sure. As things stand, even you would concede that there is a problem in terms of supply in the housing market. Yes?
We certainly need to build more houses. I'll definitely acknowledge that.
Absolutely. I'll take that as a yes then. So why on earth are we increasing demand? That's all that Help to Buy does.
Well, with respect, that isn't what Help to Buy does. What it does is it's aimed at new build. And if you look at the statistics, Neil, the average house that has been bought under Help to Buy, the price has been £239,000. 53% of those who have bought under Help to Buy are first-time buyers. And over 80% of people who have bought using Help to Buy have said they would not have been able to afford to buy a home otherwise. So what it has meant is additionality in the system and more homes built as a result of the Help to Buy scheme. But can I go back to one other point, which I don't think the press have covered as much as perhaps should have happened, which is the announcement on rent certainty from 2020 within the social sector. And I can tell you that the National Housing Federation, the Chief Executive David Orr, has talked about this as a watershed moment. And I would encourage you to talk to the social housing sector, who will tell you that the announcements that have been made are actually really good news for getting more social housing built in this country. And so we understand that we need to build more homes, but we are targeting our efforts and we're making sure that we do that. And as you know, on Tuesday, the Prime Minister, who said it's going to be her mission to fix the broken housing market, is leading a task force. We're bringing together the big house builders, people in social housing, local authorities, to see what more we can do to turbocharge house building in our country.
Well, let's just be clear. I mean, there is, of course, a difference between housing that is affordable and social housing. So let's turn to that, shall we? The Local Government Association says that by 2020, 88,000 council properties will have been sold off. How many social homes were built last year?
The number of social homes built last year in terms of affordable homes was around...
No, there's a difference between social and affordable.
Well,
944 council houses were built last year. By the end of this decade, we're going to have lost nigh on 90,000 of them. I mean, clearly, we are not replenishing supply in terms of social housing quickly enough. And do you know why that is? Because we go all the way back to 2010, when the government decided that there'll be no new public money for social rent.
Well, I would just say to you that the Affordable Homes Programme, which is now worth £9 billion, is delivering affordable rent. It's also delivering intermediate rent. It's allowing people to have different tenures. So you can have shared ownership and staircase up to ownership. So I don't accept the fact that the government hasn't done enough, but it is the case that there is extra £2 billion which has been made available. And of course, some of that will be for social housing, targeting areas of particular affordability or lack of affordability in the country.
But can we just be absolutely clear about this? There is a difference, isn't there, between affordable housing and social housing, and predominant in it is the idea that you actually pay less. I mean, look, I'm just trying to find a degree of competence in the government's record when it comes to the housing sector. Actually, do you know what? There has been one area of significant growth when it comes to the housing sector, and that's unemployment. More than 4,000 people sleeping rough in 2016. Homelessness, I should say. 4,000 people sleeping rough in 2016, an increase of 134% since you got into power. And there are 77,000 households, including 120,000 children, currently housed in temporary accommodation. That's your record, isn't it?
Well, the record is that we have provided funding to build more homes across the country. We've made sure that people are able to afford to buy homes. But look, I fully accept that we need to be building more homes. What we said in the Housing White Paper is that we need to be delivering 250,000 homes a year. Last year, a big jump from previous years, there were 190,000 net additions in the system. But we need to be doing more, and that means diversifying the housing market, making sure that we get the builders building at a faster rate. We do a lot more to support small and medium-sized builders, and we're doing that through a £3 billion facility called the Home Building Fund, making sure that infrastructure is available, which is what very many people want when new houses go up in their area. £2.3 billion being made available for that. And of course, also assisting the social housing sector, which is precisely what we've done. And I go back to the point that what David Orr has said is that this was a watershed moment in terms of the announcements that were made at the party conference.
I suppose the takeaway that many people will have is that much of what you have just said, that we need to do more in terms of house building, we need to do more in terms of making sure that the properties that are coming onto the market are affordable. I mean, all of this could have been said in 2010 as much as 2017. I do, however, whilst we have you, want to talk about Brexit. Why is the government refusing to release those impact statements, the research that they carried out into what effect Brexit would have on the various parts of the country?
Well, what I say to you, Neil, is that on the general point about Brexit, is that we are all united behind the Prime Minister's vision for the UK outside the European Union. She stated that at the Lancaster House speech. She restated that at the Foreign speech.
Why won't you publish the impact statements which spell out exactly what would happen to the country in the civil services assessment after Brexit?
Well, the civil service does, of course, all sorts of assessments. But what we have to look at is what happened when people voted. Look, I voted to remain in the European Union, but I was very clear at the time, is that if in the country people decided to go another way, which is what they did, then we should respect that. And so what we want to make sure that working with our friends and partners in the EU, we deliver a deal which makes sense for them and makes sense for us. And I am confident that we will get there.
I'm going to push you again on this. Why wouldn't we publish? I mean, if the research shows that there'll be little or no change, you can publish. If the research shows that there will be a significant negative effect to parts of the country, surely you should publish.
Well, as I said to you, Neil, I mean, there are all sorts of reports and works that are done internally within the civil service, looking at a whole range of things. But the key focus has to be delivering on the mandate that the British public have given us, which is for us to exit the European Union. That is precisely what we're going to be doing, and we want to do it on a basis that makes sense for us and the EU.
I mean, it looks like you're trying to hide something. Similarly, with the legal advice surrounding Article 50, whether or not we could de-trigger, untrigger, revoke Article 50. Why aren't you publishing that?
Well, we can have these discussions backwards and forwards. All I would say to you, I think the key focus for this government has to be to get a good deal for the UK as we leave the European Union, and that is precisely what the Prime Minister and other ministers are determined to do. The Prime Minister will be Europe again, meeting leaders next week, and I'm sure we will see progress.
Minister, whilst we have you, a story this morning in the paper suggesting that GPs would soon be asking us about our sexuality. What's your view?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Apologies, I will repeat now that your piece is back in.
Yeah.
A story this morning suggesting that general practitioners will be asking their patients about their sexuality. What do you make of it?
Well, I haven't seen the detail of that proposal, but what I would say is that where GPs need information on a private basis about their patients, then of course they should have that. But I would have to look at these proposals to give you any further comment. As I said, I've not seen them in any detail.